My mother-in-law announced that my sister-in-law would be moving into our home for 6 weeks after giving birth. For the third time, while I was in the middle of presenting a design proposal to an investment board. My phone kept vibrating inside the pocket of my blazer. I glanced at it only when the meeting paused, so the finance team could verify the budget. The first message was from Patricia Mercer. Chloe is expecting the twins in early June. I told her she should come stay with you for 6 weeks after she leaves the hospital. Your house is spacious and close to the children's hospital. I'll come help too. The second message said, with 2 babies, Chloe should use the primary bedroom. You and Daniel can move into the home office for a few weeks. The third said, do not make this difficult like last time. Families help one another. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. At the head of the conference table, Adrian Cole, the company's new creative director, asked, Olivia, are you all right? I turned my phone face down. I'm fine. Let's continue. My name is Olivia Hartwell. I was 32, a commercial interior designer living in Seattle, and I had been married to Daniel Mercer for 5 years. The 3-story townhouse we shared in Queen Anne had 2 bedrooms, a small office, and an open kitchen on the ground floor. On paper, it belonged to both of us. In the Mercer family's mind, it was free lodging whenever Chloe needed it. 3 years earlier, when Chloe had her first baby, she said she would stay for only 1 week because the heating system in her apartment was being repaired. 1 week became 46 days. At the time, I was 10 weeks pregnant. Nobody asked whether I agreed. Daniel simply called during lunch and said, Chloe just gave birth. Mom says our place is closer to the hospital. Try to be flexible for a while. I replied, I have severe morning sickness. He said, it's only 6 weeks. Later, I remembered that sentence more clearly than his face on the day I lost our baby. When Chloe arrived, Patricia brought 3 suitcases, a portable bassinet, a bottle sterilizer, a baby swing, boxes of formula, and enough prepared food to fill the refrigerator. She said women recovering from childbirth needed protein and fat, so every morning she fried bacon, sausage, and eggs in butter. Lunch was chicken pot pie, meatloaf, or macaroni and cheese. Dinner was beef stew with onions, garlic, and red wine. Ordinary food smells became torture to someone suffering from severe nausea. I vomited until I could not keep water down. Patricia only said, every pregnant woman gets nauseous. Chloe has just given birth. She is the one who needs priority. Our primary bedroom became the postpartum room because it had an ensuite bathroom. Patricia moved my clothes into the office without warning. When I returned home, my dresses and coats were packed into 2 plastic bins beside the printer. The large room has to be for Chloe and the baby, she said. She needs space for the bassinet and nighttime pumping. I looked at Daniel. He would not look at me. It's only a few weeks, he said. The office barely fit a narrow sofa bed. Daniel slept beside me for 2 nights, then moved to the downstairs couch because he said the sound of me vomiting kept him awake. Chloe's baby cried every 2 hours. Patricia managed 3 nights before her back began hurting, and she decided that young women should support one another. After that, she often knocked on the office door at 2 or 3 in the morning. Olivia, warm a bottle for him, I'm dizzy. Or, Olivia, hold him for a while, Chloe just fell asleep. Or, change his diaper, you'll be a mother someday, so consider it practice. I was still working full-time. I left home at 7:30, arrived at the office before 9, returned close to 7 in the evening, then helped wash bottles, do laundry, and carry food upstairs. Daniel worked in sales for a software company. He often came home late, ate whatever Patricia had left, and said he was exhausted. One evening I asked, can you hold your nephew for a while so I can sleep? Daniel looked at his phone. I don't know how to care for a baby. Neither do I. Women are naturally better at it. I did not argue. I was too tired to argue. 2 weeks later, My doctor told me I was anemic, dehydrated, and losing too much weight. She instructed me to rest, take iron, and call immediately if I experienced pain or bleeding. I brought the medical note home. Patricia glanced at it and said, "Doctors make everything sound serious these days. I gave birth twice and still cooked and did laundry." Daniel told me to work from home. Home was noisier than the office. That night, Chloe developed a clogged milk duct and a fever. Patricia panicked. Daniel drove her to urgent care. I stayed behind with the baby because nobody else was available. He cried from 11 at night until almost 2 in the morning. I held him, walked around the living room, tried formula, changed his diaper, and played white noise on my phone. When he finally slept, I placed him in the bassinet and went to the bathroom. There was blood on my underwear. I called Daniel. He did not answer. I called Patricia. She texted, "We're handling Chloe's paperwork. Call yourself a taxi to the hospital." I took a taxi to the emergency room alone. The doctors kept me overnight. The pregnancy no longer had a heartbeat. Nobody told me that sleep deprivation or overwork was the sole cause. The physician explained that early miscarriages can have many causes, most of which cannot be determined with certainty. But she also documented that anemia, dehydration, and severe exhaustion had significantly weakened my body and should have been treated earlier. What I could never forget was not only the medical conclusion. It was lying alone in the hospital until nearly noon the next day. My best friend, Mia Torres, was the first person who came. She brought clean clothes, a phone charger, and a cup of warm water. When she saw me, she did not ask why I had not called sooner. She simply sat down, held my hand, and said, "You do not have to do anything. Just stay here." Daniel arrived close to 2 in the afternoon. He entered with messy hair and the smell of coffee. "Chloe still has a fever," he said before asking how I was. I looked at him. "The baby is gone." He sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed his face. "I know, the doctor called." "When did you know?" "Around 7. It's 2 now. I had to take Chloe home, buy medication, and pick up Mom." I did not cry. I had already cried through the night. Daniel took my hand. "Olivia, nobody wanted this. Don't blame yourself." I looked at his hand over mine. "I don't blame myself." He lifted his head. "Then who do you blame?" I did not answer. Patricia never came to the hospital. Chloe did not call either. 3 days later, when I returned home, the primary bedroom was still Chloe's room. The bassinet stood beside the bed. My clothes remained inside plastic bins. Patricia handed me a bowl of chicken noodle soup. "Don't dwell on it. You're both young. You can try again." Chloe stood on the stairs holding her baby. "I heard you miscarried. I'm sorry. But my baby is still so young, so I think we need to stay a few more weeks." I looked at her. "Are you not going back to your own home? The apartment is still dusty, and Jason doesn't know how to care for a baby." Jason Reed was Chloe's husband. He visited on weekends, played with the baby for 20 minutes, ate dinner, and then returned to their apartment because he said he needed sleep for work. I turned toward Daniel. He said, "Olivia, you just left the hospital. Don't start an argument." "I want my bedroom back. Chloe is not stable yet. Neither am I." The room became silent. Patricia sighed. "You lost a pregnancy at only 10 weeks. Chloe gave birth to a living child. They are not the same." I looked at her for a long time. Then I went into the office, closed the door, and lay down on the sofa bed. I did not sleep that night. Not because the baby was crying, because for the first time, I clearly understood my place in that family. I was not someone they cared for. I was the person expected to give up her place. Chloe left after a total of 6 weeks. Daniel bought flowers and apologized. He booked a weekend trip to Bainbridge Island and said we needed a fresh start. I went. I smiled in photographs. I ate dinner beside the water. I listened as he said we would have another baby someday. But after that night in the hospital, part of me had stopped. I did not file for divorce immediately. I was not strong enough yet. I was not prepared enough either. Instead, I began building an exit nobody in the Mercer family knew about. I rented a studio apartment of less than 40 square meters in Fremont. The lease was under a small LLC that Mia helped me register for freelance design work. The studio was on the third floor of an old building, with windows overlooking a street lined with a coffee shop, a used bookstore, and a sourdough bakery. I told Daniel it was a work studio. That was not entirely false. I put in a drafting table, 2 monitors, a materials shelf, and a sofa that unfolded into a bed. But the closet also held clothes, medication, personal documents, a small suitcase, and enough cash for me to survive several weeks if necessary. I named my design account A Room of Her Own. At first, I posted only sketches of small apartments, bedrooms for women living alone, work corners designed around natural light, and ways to create boundaries inside shared homes. I never appeared on camera. Beneath one photograph, I wrote, "A room does not have to be large. It only has to be a place where nobody can move your belongings somewhere else without asking." The post was shared more than 3,000 times. One woman commented that after 20 years of marriage, she had never owned a single drawer that was hers alone. Another said she worked in the laundry room because her husband and sons had claimed every other room. I read each comment and realized I was not the only woman disappearing inside her own home. I began taking small projects, home offices, studio apartment renovations, nurseries, and postpartum spaces. I deposited part of the income into a separate account, reported every dollar for taxes, and kept copies of all contracts. I also copied every document connected to the townhouse. When we bought it, my parents gave me $180,000 for the down payment. The money was wired directly from their account to escrow, and the gift letter clearly stated that it was intended for their daughter. Daniel contributed $40,000 from savings. After marriage, we both paid the mortgage. But during the first 3 years, I earned more, and most of the renovations, the hardwood floors, windows, kitchen, and bathrooms, were paid from my bonuses and freelance projects. I saved the receipts. Not because I was already certain I would divorce, because after the miscarriage, I understood how quickly the phrase, "we are family," could change when property was involved. A year and a half later, Chloe gave birth to her second child, a girl. Once again, she wanted to stay with us because Jason had to travel for 3 weeks, and Patricia said Chloe's apartment was too small. Daniel told me over dinner, "Chloe will be here for about 2 weeks." I put down my fork. "No," he stared at me. "You haven't heard the whole situation." "I have heard enough. Mom will take care of her this time. You won't have to do anything." That is what she said last time. "Chloe only needs the living room. She will not take the bedroom." I do not agree. Daniel stayed silent for a while, then asked, "You are really going to leave my sister alone after she gives birth? She has a husband, a mother, and an apartment." Jason is traveling. Patricia can stay at Chloe's apartment. Mom's back hurts. She cannot sleep on the couch. Then hire a postpartum doula. Daniel laughed as though I had proposed hiring a private chef for royalty. "Do you know how expensive that is?" "Yes, and I also know what my health cost last time." He said nothing. I thought he understood. 3 days later, I came home and found a folding bassinet in the living room. Daniel said Chloe would stay for only 10 nights. I did not argue. I took the suitcase I had already prepared, went to the studio, and stayed there for 2 weeks. Daniel called constantly during the first 3 days. "You are overreacting. You abandoned a large house to live in that tiny room. Mom says the neighbors are asking why you aren't home." I gave only one answer. That was your choice. After Chloe left, Daniel came to the studio. He brought my favorite Thai food and said he did not want our marriage to become two people living separately. I asked, "If Chloe has another child, what will you do?" Daniel replied, "Chloe says 2 children are enough." I looked at him. "I did not ask Chloe. I asked you." He never answered directly. He only said, "Let's not fight about something that has not happened." I still returned home. Later, many people would not understand that decision. Even Mia asked, "What are you waiting for?" I had no single answer. I was waiting for Daniel to change. I was afraid to admit that the marriage I had once defended to my parents had been a mistake. I worried about the house, litigation, and a career still tied to a design institute whose clients overlapped with Daniel's company. I also once believed that a marriage was not bad enough to leave as long as there was no physical violence, infidelity, or financial control. But indifference can destroy a person too. It only does so more slowly. From then on, Daniel and I lived like roommates. We still ate dinner together several times a week, attended parties with friends, and visited both families for Thanksgiving. On social media, we remained a stable married couple, but I slept in the office more and more often. Daniel did not ask why. He preferred the appearance of peace to the discomfort of honesty. A Room of Her Own grew to more than 100,000 followers over 2 years, not because of one viral video, but because of hundreds of consistent posts. I shared drawings, real costs, construction mistakes, and anonymous stories about how space reflects power inside families. A client named Evelyn Shaw found me through the account. She owned a chain of boutique hotels and was preparing to renovate Alder House in Belltown. She asked the Design Institute where I worked to assign the project to me. My former boss, Martin Lowe, disliked that request. A client finding you through Instagram does not mean you are ready to lead a $40 million project, he said. She found me through my portfolio and professional account, not personal photographs. Martin assigned me to develop the concept, but reserved the presentation and final credit for a male director who had not participated in the initial research. I did not resign immediately. I completed my assigned work, preserved proof of my contributions, and began speaking with Harlow and Pine, a smaller but respected design studio. Adrian Cole, their creative director, told me during the interview, "I cannot promise to make you a star. I can promise that if you lead a project, your name will appear where it belongs." I accepted a base salary, only 10% higher than my old one, but the offer included project profit sharing and the right to continue operating my personal account. I planned to move after completing the preliminary design phase of Alder House. Then Patricia announced that Chloe was pregnant for the 3rd time. Twins. 6 months later, while I was presenting in that investment meeting, the message arrived saying Chloe would move into our home for 6 weeks. I finished the presentation, answered the board's questions, and returned home close to 9 that evening. Daniel sat in the kitchen, eating pepperoni pizza and watching basketball highlights on a tablet. I placed my phone in front of him. "Did you know about this?" He glanced at the messages. "Yes." "You agreed?" "Mom told me last week." "And you never told me. I knew how you would react." "So you let your mother announce it for you." Daniel turned off the tablet. "Olivia, Chloe is carrying twins. Her apartment is on the 4th floor, and the elevator is always breaking. Jason is having problems at work. Our place is close to Swedish Medical Center, and the primary bedroom is larger. That is our bedroom. It's only 6 weeks." I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because 3 years had passed and he was still using the exact same sentence. "The first time was only 6 weeks too." Daniel sighed. "Stop dragging the past into everything. The past is that I lost our baby while being treated as unpaid help for your sister. The doctor never said Chloe caused the miscarriage. I did not say Chloe directly caused it. I said your entire family watched me become exhausted, anemic, and so sick that I fainted, and still treated me as the person responsible for serving everyone else. Daniel placed both hands on the table. What do you want me to do? Tell my sister to recover from a C-section and care for 2 newborns alone? She has a husband. Jason may lose his job. She has a mother. Mom cannot care for 2 babies all day. Then hire a night doula, use meal delivery, hire a cleaner, or organize relatives in shifts. That all costs money. So the free option is to use my bedroom and my labor. Nobody is asking you to care for them. I have heard that twice before. Daniel went silent. I took an envelope from my bag. Inside was a copy of the studio key and a list of belongings I planned to move. If Chloe comes here, I leave. He stared at the envelope. Are you threatening me? No. I am telling you what I will do. You are abandoning your husband because his sister needs postpartum help? I am leaving a home where my husband has chosen his sister's needs over his wife's health and consent 3 times. Daniel jumped to his feet. If you walk out this time, do not expect me to come begging for you to return. I looked at him. Fine. My calmness confused him more than shouting would have. His tone changed. Olivia, you do not need to make this dramatic. Mom only suggested the primary bedroom because of the bathroom. We can sleep in the office. You can. What does that mean? You can sleep in the office and care for Chloe. I will stay at the studio. What will people think? That you are helping your sister. Mom will say you are selfish. She already has. Daniel stared at me. So, you are choosing your work and that studio over your family? I shook my head. No, I am choosing myself, after your family has made too many choices for me. I went upstairs and pulled the suitcase from the closet. This time I did not pack for 2 weeks. I took my passport, birth certificate, medical records, hard drives, my mother's jewelry, and the original documents connected to the house. Daniel stood in the bedroom doorway. You are really leaving? Yes. If you go, we are getting divorced. I zipped the suitcase. Fine. He waited for me to cry or turn around. I simply walked past him. 3 years earlier, my belongings had been removed from my bedroom without anyone asking me. This time, I walked out of the house on my own feet. I moved into the studio that night. Mia was already waiting with 2 bags of groceries, a bottle of sparkling cider, and a container of clam chowder from a shop near Pike Place. She looked at my 3 suitcases and asked, "Is this temporary, or is it real this time?" I don't know. Mia locked the door and handed me a bowl of hot soup. Then tonight, all you need to know is that you do not have to go back. I sat on the sofa bed and ate slowly. The room was cramped, but nobody knocked to ask me to warm a bottle, surrender my bedroom, or move my belongings. I slept for 10 hours. The next morning, Daniel sent exactly 1 message. Mom and Chloe are arriving this weekend. If you change your mind, come home before they get here, so nobody has to feel awkward. I read it, then sent my personal email, work number, and studio address to the family law attorney Mia had recommended. Her name was Rachel Kim. During our first consultation, Rachel did not ask whether I was certain I wanted a divorce. She asked, "What do you want to protect first? The house, the business account, and my professional records. Do you still want to return to the marriage?" I remained silent. Rachel said, "You do not have to answer that today, but uncertainty about your feelings should not become delay in protecting your documents." She asked me to prepare a complete list of assets, debts, down payment sources, income, retirement accounts, and separate contributions. I handed her the file I had been building for 3 years. Rachel turned the pages and looked at me. You have been preparing to leave for a long time. I was preparing not to be trapped. That is also a form of preparing to leave. I filed for legal separation, but did not yet ask the court to finalize anything. Rachel notified Daniel that any transaction involving the townhouse required written consent from both of us. I also formally resigned from the Old Design Institute. Martin Lowe called me into his office. You are leaving just as Alder House enters a critical phase? I completed the scope of work required by my contract. Harlow and Pine will take me after my notice period. The client will not follow you. I am not asking her to. But Evelyn Shaw learned I had resigned. She demanded that the Old Institute continue using my concept and credit me in the project record. When Martin refused, she paused the contract and reopened the team review. I did not steal the client. I simply stopped accepting other people taking my name off work I had created. 2 weeks later, Harlow and Pine won a separate Alder House contract through a new competitive process. Evelyn said during the meeting, I am choosing the team that includes Olivia, not because she has a social media account, but because she understands that this hotel has to give guests a sense of belonging without invading their privacy. Farah. I had to look down and take notes so nobody would see my eyes filling. Daniel found out through LinkedIn. He called. You really changed companies? Yes. You never told me. You did not tell me Chloe was moving in until your mother announced it. You are retaliating. My career is not a weapon. And the house? Are you going to let Mom and Chloe live there while forcing me to pay the entire mortgage? I am still transferring my agreed share into the joint account. Rachel documented it. You hired a lawyer? Yes. Daniel stayed silent longer this time. You really want a divorce. I want you to understand that threatening divorce no longer keeps me in place. He hung up. Chloe delivered the twins 3 weeks early. Both girls spent almost 10 days in the NICU. I learned about it through Patricia's post. She wrote a long tribute to the 2 smallest fighters in the Mercer family and thanked Daniel for clearing the entire second floor to welcome Chloe and the babies. In the photographs, my bedroom had been transformed. The bed had been pushed against one wall. 2 bassinets stood near the window. My vanity was gone. The shelves held a breast pump, diaper boxes, and burp cloths. I enlarged the photograph. The painting my mother gave me still hung on the wall, but beneath it were 3 cardboard boxes labeled with my name. Daniel had packed the rest of my belongings without asking. I sent the photograph to Rachel. She said, "Do not return alone to collect anything." We created an inventory of my personal property and scheduled a supervised pickup. When I arrived, Chloe sat on the couch, one baby in a portable bassinet and the other in Patricia's arms. Jason stood in the kitchen drinking coffee. Daniel opened the door. Do you really need to do this today? This is the time both attorneys agreed upon. Patricia looked at the neutral third-party observer and said, Do we really need to make a family matter look like police business? He is not a police officer, I said. He is documenting property. Chloe went pale. You came to take everything while I just gave birth? I am taking only my personal belongings. This is still your home. Then why are my things in boxes? Daniel interrupted. I only moved them to make room for the twins. I looked at him. You decided how the house would be used without my consent. I am adapting. I took my clothes, books, computer, material samples, and the reading chair my grandmother had left me. I did not take any shared household items. When I passed the office, I saw that the sofa bed had been made up for Daniel. What I had told him before leaving had become reality. He could sleep in the office and care for his sister. I felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. For the next 6 weeks, Patricia posted photographs every day. Daniel holding babies at midnight. Daniel warming bottles. Daniel installing car seats. Daniel asleep on the couch. She called him the best brother in the world. None of the posts mentioned that he once told his pregnant wife he did not know how to care for a baby. I never commented. I worked. Alder House was the hardest project I had ever led. The historic building had strict preservation limits. The budget was cut by 8%, and the mechanical systems were older than the records. During the second month, we discovered that part of the lobby structure could not support the design load. I had to discard nearly 3 weeks of work. One investor wanted to replace natural stone with cheaper imitation materials. Adrian did not speak for me. He said, "You are the design lead. Present the options." I prepared 3 alternatives, analyzed life cycle costs, and demonstrated that the cheaper material would cost more in maintenance over 10 years. The board selected the middle option. Not every idea I proposed was approved, but for the first time, I was allowed to be genuinely responsible for both success and mistakes. A Room of Her Own grew to 300,000 followers after a video about postpartum rooms. In the video, I said, "A well-designed postpartum space is not a place where a mother is sent so the entire family can serve the baby. It is a place where the person who gave birth can rest, receive professional support, have privacy, and avoid turning another woman into unpaid labor." I never mentioned Chloe. Daniel recognized himself anyway. He messaged, "You are insulting my family in front of hundreds of thousands of people." I replied, "I am discussing design and postpartum care. If it sounds like your family, that is not because I named anyone." He did not answer. After 6 weeks, Chloe still did not leave. The twins were poor sleepers. Jason said their apartment was too small, and Patricia said Daniel had already learned how to help, so a few extra weeks would not matter. Daniel called. "Can you remain at the studio for another month?" I laughed. "I have already moved out. I mean, do not push the divorce forward until Chloe is settled. The divorce timeline is not connected to Chloe's sleep schedule. Can you show some compassion?" I spent 3 years learning that compassion without boundaries becomes permission for other people to use you. Daniel spoke at length about family, responsibility, and Chloe's possible postpartum depression. I asked, "Has she seen a doctor?" "Mom thinks she only needs rest. If there are signs of depression, she needs a professional evaluation, not permanent access to someone else's bedroom." You turn everything into a procedure, because your family turns everything into my obligation. I ended the call. Chloe finally returned to her apartment after almost 9 weeks. 3 days later, Patricia and Daniel came to the studio. Patricia brought a pecan pie. Daniel carried tulips. Their faces were so gentle that I knew immediately they needed something. Patricia said, "Can we come in and speak as a family?" I did not open the door wider. My attorney has asked that all property discussions be in writing. This is not about property. It is about reconciliation. Daniel looked at me. "I want to apologize." I let them enter because Mia was sitting in the coffee shop downstairs and knew they were there. Patricia looked around the studio. "You truly live in a place this small?" "I live well." She placed the pie on the table. "I know our family did not handle this properly. Chloe said she will not inconvenience you again. There is no next time." Daniel sat down. "I do not want a divorce. You used divorce to threaten me." I said it in anger. I agreed while calm. Patricia rushed to interrupt. "Married couples say terrible things during arguments. I came because I want the family to begin again." I looked at the folder on Daniel's lap. "What is in your hand?" Daniel tightened his grip. "Only something we need you to sign." I said nothing. He opened the folder. It was a brokerage agreement to sell the townhouse. I did not touch the papers. "You listed the house for sale?" Daniel answered quickly. "Not officially. We only prepared the documents. You cannot list it without my signature. That is why I came." Patricia pulled her chair closer. Olivia, Jason is in trouble. His company is laying people off. Their credit cards are nearly maxed out, and the twins' hospital bills are enormous. If nobody helps, Chloe could lose her apartment. How much do they need? Daniel and Patricia looked at each other. About $120,000, he said. The townhouse has more than $500,000 in equity. Why sell the entire property? We need a fresh start too, Daniel replied. That house carries too many bad memories. We sell it, help Chloe clear the debt, and then I buy a smaller place. Once we reconcile, you can move in. I looked at him. Whose name would be on the new house? Daniel said nothing. Patricia answered. Daniel should hold title first. It will be easier for him to qualify for the mortgage. His income is stable. My income is higher than his. But you work for a smaller firm and run a personal account. Banks prefer corporate employees. I turned to Daniel. You want me to sign away a house whose down payment came mostly from my parents, use the proceeds to help your sister, and then buy another house in your name alone? You make it sound as if I plan to take everything. Then write into the agreement that the replacement home must be jointly owned in proportion to our contributions. Patricia immediately said, If family members calculate percentages like business partners, what kind of family is that? I laughed. You brought a home sale contract into my studio. Daniel pushed the folder toward me. We do not have to fight. Take it and read it. Let your attorney review it. I will. Patricia softened her voice. Mother knows you still love Daniel. Once you sign this, the family can erase all the misunderstandings. Chloe will be grateful to you for the rest of her life. I do not need Chloe's gratitude. Do not be heartless. I will not sign today. Daniel stood. You always have to make everything difficult. No, I only ask the questions you do not want to answer. They left without taking the pecan pie. I sent every page to Rachel. She called back in less than an hour. The listing agreement sets the asking price almost 10% below current market value. The broker is a friend of Douglas Vail. I have never met him. There is also an addendum directing the net proceeds, after the mortgage is paid, into an escrow account designated by Daniel. Not distributed directly to both spouses? No. So if I sign, the entire amount could pass through an account he controls. Yes, and because you are separated but do not yet have a comprehensive temporary court order, it could create a very difficult financial dispute. Rachel instructed me not to respond further and filed for a temporary order restricting transactions involving marital assets. 2 days later, I received an email from Jason Reed. Jason and I had never been close. He was quiet, always looking at his phone, and avoided any conversation about family responsibility. During Chloe's first stay in my home, he appeared more like a visitor than a husband. The email contained only one sentence. I think you should know the real reason they want to sell the house. A phone number appeared beneath it. I forwarded the message to Rachel. She arranged a documented call with Jason and his attorney. Jason began. I am not doing this to help you. I am doing it because Patricia and Daniel are trying to place all the responsibility on me. Explain. He sighed. My debt with Chloe is not $120,000. How much is it? Around $58,000, including credit cards and the unresolved portion of the hospital bills. I have already received a revised payment proposal from the hospital, so the actual amount may be lower. Then what happens to the rest of the money? Jason sent a series of screenshots. In the Mercer family group chat, Patricia had written, After Chloe's debt is paid, keep $200,000 as a fund for the 3 children. Use the remainder for Daniel's down payment on a new house. This time, Olivia's name must not appear on the title, or she may try to claim it later. Daniel replied, I will tell her the sale is part of reconciliation. If she signs, escrow will transfer everything to the account I control. Chloe sent a heart emoji and wrote, Daniel, choose a house with a basement. That way we can stay for long visits in the future. I stopped reading. Not because I was surprised, because the plan followed the same pattern as everything before. My bedroom, my time, my health, now my house. They never treated anything that belonged to me as property requiring consent. It was merely a resource that had not yet been redirected toward the Mercer family. Rachel asked Jason, "How did you obtain these messages?" Chloe's iPad was synchronized with her phone. I found them while looking for a hospital invoice. "And why are you giving them to us?" Jason stayed silent. His attorney answered, "My client is preparing for separation. He discovered that his wife has a secret account and that her family intends to use Ms. Hartwell's home equity to conceal debt and create a private fund. He does not want to be accused of participating." I asked, "Did you know about the plan from the beginning?" "I knew they wanted money. I did not know they intended to take that much." "You allowed your wife to stay in my house 3 times because you claimed you could not care for your children." Jason looked down. "I was wrong. You were not only wrong, you allowed someone else to pay for your comfort." He did not argue. After the call, Rachel said, "The messages are strong evidence of an intended transfer of assets. We will ask the court to freeze the house, the accounts, and any related proceeds." The motion was filed the following morning. The court issued a temporary order prohibiting sale, refinancing, or transfer of the townhouse without mutual written consent or further judicial approval. Daniel learned about it that afternoon. He called from his office number. "You are suing me? I am protecting marital property. What did Jason tell you? You should speak to your attorney. You are destroying Chloe's family." "No, I am preventing your family from using my money to build a house without my name." Daniel went silent. I continued. I read the group chat. His breathing changed. Chloe just gave birth. Mom was emotional. "What about your message saying the money would be transferred into an account you controlled?" "I planned to manage it responsibly. And buying a house without my name was responsible management?" "You left the house. I needed to protect myself." "So, you admit this was not reconciliation?" Daniel raised his voice. "You have the studio, a new firm, and an account with hundreds of thousands of followers. You do not need that house the way I do. I do not have to be poor before I am allowed to keep my share of property. Your parents have money. That is not permission for your family to take mine." He was quiet for several seconds. "I did not realize you had become this cold." I looked at the drawings on my monitor. "You did not realize who I had become, because for years, you only looked at what I could still provide for your family." I ended the call. Rachel then filed the formal divorce petition. No more separation while we reconsidered. No more retreat. When the papers were served, Patricia came to Harlow and Pine. She wore a black coat, carried photographs of the 3 children, and demanded to see me in the lobby. Reception called security, but I stepped out with Adrian and an HR representative. The moment Patricia saw me, she began crying. "Olivia, are you trying to put Chloe and the babies on the street?" I kept my distance. "You are not permitted to come to my workplace. I only want to talk. Our attorneys can talk." She held up photographs of the twins. "Look at them. What have they done wrong? Chloe is losing her milk from stress. Jason wants a divorce. Daniel has been warned at work because of this family scandal. All because you refuse to release one house. No, all because you plan to sell a jointly owned house without my consent. The house belongs to Daniel too. That is why the court will divide it. You took the best years of his life, and now you want his money." I looked at the woman who had once said the child I lost at 10 weeks could not be compared with Chloe's baby. "Do you remember that you never came to the hospital when I miscarried?" Patricia blinked. "That was a long time ago. For you. You keep bringing it up to punish everyone." "No, I bring it up because that was when I understood I was not considered family. Patricia wiped her eyes. Daniel never hit you. He never cheated. A man who cares for his mother and sister is a good man. A man who is loyal to his original family while using his wife as the cost of that loyalty is not a good husband. She pointed at me. You will regret this. A woman who becomes too strong ends up alone. Adrian spoke. Mrs. Mercer, this conversation is over. If you do not leave, security will call the police. Patricia looked around and realized nobody supported her. She gathered the photographs and left. That afternoon, I still had to present the lighting plan for Alder House. My hand shook around the laser pointer. I gave the wrong room number on the third slide. Adrian paused the meeting for 5 minutes, asked the technical team to verify the data, and told me privately, "You may take the day off. I want to continue. Continuing does not require pretending you were unaffected." I sat alone in the conference room, drank water, and breathed until my hands stopped shaking. Then I returned. Not because I needed to prove I was strong, because I had learned that strength is not the absence of injury. It is knowing when to stop, recover, and continue only when you truly can. The divorce process lasted 11 months. There was no single dramatic hearing where a judge listened to the entire story and immediately awarded me everything. There were dozens of emails, 2 failed mediation sessions, a formal appraisal of the townhouse, a forensic accountant tracing the down payment, mortgage payments, renovation expenses, and business income. Daniel's attorney argued that the money from my parents had been placed into a jointly titled home and should therefore be treated entirely as marital property. Rachel did not deny that the house itself was community property. Instead, she proved that the original contribution could be clearly traced to a separate source, and asked the court to consider that fact under Washington's equitable distribution standard. Daniel's side also sought a share of the income connected to a room of her own. I produced records showing that the LLC had been formed after I began separating my finances. Every dollar of income had been reported, and most of the brand's value came from my personal labor, future contracts, and the commercial use of my identity. Daniel was still entitled to part of the money accumulated during the marriage. I did not oppose any portion that was genuinely marital property. What I opposed was his family treating fairness as permission to take whatever they wanted. During the second mediation, Daniel sat across from me at a long table. He looked thinner, his hair was cut short, and dark circles marked his eyes. He no longer carried the confidence of the man who had once said that if I walked out, he would not beg me to return. The mediator asked whether we could agree to sell the townhouse at market value and divide the proceeds. Daniel said, "I want to keep the house." Rachel asked, "Can your client refinance and pay Ms. Hartwell her share?" His attorney offered almost $100,000 less than our expert's calculation. I looked at Daniel. Would Chloe still be allowed to move in whenever she wanted? He clenched his hands. Chloe has returned to her apartment. I'm asking about the future. It would be my house. That is exactly why we cannot reach an agreement. Daniel looked at me. Do you truly have no feelings left? The mediator reminded him that we were discussing property, not marriage counseling. But I answered anyway. Feelings do not make one person the owner of another person's property. And having once loved you does not require me to keep living inside the way your family treated me. He lowered his eyes. The mediation ended without settlement. 4 months later, the limited trial on property division and dissolution began. I did not present the marriage as a moral drama. Rachel submitted only what was legally relevant: the down payment from my parents, the mortgage payment history, renovation expenses, the appraised value. Daniel's attempt to sign a below-market listing agreement. The messages about transferring proceeds into an account he controlled. The plan to buy another house without my name. the Temporary Asset Preservation Order. The judge also reviewed medical records and testimony about why I had left the home, not to punish Daniel for family conflict, but to understand the circumstances of separation and the use of the marital residence during the dispute. The outcome was not that I received everything. The court determined that the townhouse was community property, but that the traceable separate contribution, Daniel's attempted diversion of assets, and the overall circumstances made a mechanical 50-50 division inequitable. I was awarded 62% of the net equity. Daniel received 38%, along with part of the retirement accounts and household property under our agreement. He could not afford to buy out my share. The townhouse was listed by an independent broker selected by both sides. It sold after 7 weeks for almost $140,000 more than the price proposed by Douglas's friend. After the mortgage, selling fees, and related legal costs were paid, my portion was transferred directly through escrow under the court order. On the day the divorce decree became final, Daniel stood outside the courtroom. He called my name. Olivia. I stopped. He asked, "When did you stop loving me?" I had thought the answer would be the night I lost the baby, or the day I found my clothes in plastic bins, or the dinner when, for the third time, he said it was only 6 weeks. But the truth was more complicated. "I did not stop loving you in one day," I said. "It disappeared every time you watched me being pushed aside and chose silence." Daniel looked down. "I didn't know it was that serious. Because you never had to live with the consequences." He wanted to say more, but Rachel was waiting at the end of the corridor. I nodded once and walked away. There was no final embrace, no promise to remain friends. We simply ended. Alder House opened 4 months later. The project was not perfect. Some materials had to change because of cost. The lounge was smaller than the original concept. The lighting in the north corridor required adjustment after the first week of operations. But every floor contained one private room designed for postpartum guests, caregivers with young children, or anyone needing a quiet recovery space. Each room included a recliner, small refrigerator, adjustable lighting, sink, and sound-reducing curtains. Evelyn Shaw stood beside me on opening day. "You turned a deeply personal experience into something many people can use," she said. "I designed what I once needed." The project earned me a nomination for a regional design award. I did not win the top prize. I received an honorable mention for human-centered design. That was enough. Harlow and Pine invited me to become a principal overseeing hospitality and residential wellness, with project profit sharing. I accepted only after an attorney reviewed the agreement and confirmed that a room of her own remained my intellectual property. The account reached more than 600,000 followers. I rejected 3 advertising offers that did not fit the platform and accepted 2 partnerships with sustainable lighting and furniture companies. I did not become a millionaire overnight. I still paid taxes, contractors, software fees, and studio rent, but I no longer feared that another person could cut off my livelihood through a family decision. I bought a 2-bedroom condo in Ballard. It was not large. The windows offered a partial view of Puget Sound. The second bedroom became a real studio, with a locking door, a materials table, and a reading chair beside the bookshelves. The title carried only my name. My parents helped me move, but did not contribute more money. My mother brought a tray of lasagna. My father installed one shelf backward and had to take it apart. On the first night, I sat on the floor among cardboard boxes and ate lasagna from a paper plate. Mia raised a glass of sparkling cider. "At last, you have a room of your own." I looked around. No, this time I have the whole home. Nearly a year later, Chloe sent me an email. The subject contained only 2 words. "I'm sorry." I did not open it immediately. I knew Jason and Chloe had divorced. During their separation, Chloe discovered that Jason had been involved with a coworker since before the twins were born. He had used business trips as an excuse to stay away while leaving Chloe and Patricia to care for the children. In the email, Chloe wrote, "I used to think you were selfish for refusing to help me. After Jason left, Mom told me I should endure it for the children. Daniel said he did not want to become involved in my divorce. That was when I understood what it feels like to ask a man to see you, only for him to see everyone else's obligations instead. I remember when you were in the hospital. I knew you had lost the baby, but I was still thinking about how I could not leave your house yet. There is no explanation good enough for that. I am sorry I took your bedroom and your time and treated your care as something I was entitled to. I read the message and left it overnight." The next morning, I replied, "I accept your apology, but I will not say it was all right, because those actions caused real harm. I hope you build a life in which your children never learn that love requires another woman to disappear." Olivia. Chloe did not reply. I did not need her to. Patricia never apologized. She sent a Christmas card with a photograph of the 3 children, but wrote nothing beyond the printed greeting. Daniel moved into an apartment in Bellevue and maintained contact with his family in whatever way he chose. I did not follow. 2 years after leaving the townhouse, I was invited to speak at a conference about residential design. I stood before a screen displaying an empty room. "Space is not neutral," I said. "Who sleeps in the largest bedroom? Whose belongings are moved into the hallway? Who is allowed to close a door? And who must always remain available to serve? Those choices reveal power." The next slide showed my old studio. There was a time when I believed I had to wait for someone else to give me a room. Then came a photograph of the Ballard condo. But nobody grants us boundaries while benefiting from the fact that we have none. After the talk, an older woman approached me. "I am 61, she said. "I have never had a room of my own." I did not tell her to divorce, move out, or make any dramatic decision. I only asked, "Would you like to begin with a desk, a drawer, or a door?" She thought for a moment and smiled. A door. That evening, I returned to the condo. I opened the studio door, placed my bag down, and drew the curtains. On the desk were plans for a new postpartum support center. The design included recovery rooms for mothers, sleeping space for support workers, a communal kitchen, counseling rooms, and professional care schedules. Nothing in the plans said that a sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, or any other woman in the family was required to work for free. I switched on the desk lamp. Outside the window, the water darkened beneath the Seattle sky. 3 years earlier, my clothes had been removed from the primary bedroom to make space for someone else. Now I had a home where nobody could decide who would stay, who would sleep where, or whom I was required to serve. I once believed I needed to reclaim one room. In the end, what I reclaimed was the right to decide how I would live.